Reading 012, Unit 1, Lesson 1, Keep Running. By the end of Unit 1, Lesson 1, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text and apply reading strategies such as previewing. Let's take a look at some vocabularies of reading skill. The number one word is solo, and the meaning is alone. The number two word is rucksack, and the meaning is a backpack. Number three is a jogger, and this is a special stroller to push a baby while running or jogging. And number four is a blizzard, and the meaning is a long, severe snowstorm. Number five is treading. This can also mean stepping or walking on. Previewing. Preview the magazine article below. Underline the title, the first sentence of each paragraph, and the last sentence of the text as you preview. Then answer this question. What is the text about? Now let's take a look at this text. Around the World with Rosie. Rosie Swell Pope is unlike any other 60-year-old grandmother in the world. 3 years ago, she left her house in Wales and started off on a solo run around the world. With the exception of short flights between oceans, Rosie has run across Europe, Russia, and Siberia, and down through Alaska and Canada. She is currently crossing the United States and hopes to be home by next December. When Rosie began her trip, she ran carrying her belongings in a 40-pound rucksack. Later, a woman in Russia gave her a baby jogger to push. For some time in the Alaskan wilderness, she pulled her belongings in a sled. Now she pulls a cart she calls the Silver Dream Machine. In it, she keeps her tent, cook stove, and other essentials. When full, her cart weighs nearly 300 pounds. Despite the weight, she averages between 10 and 25 miles each day. Rosie's adventures have included incredible summertime heat and below freezing winter weather, encounters with bears and wolves and robbers, frostbite, broken ribs, and pneumonia. She even had to be rescued in a blizzard, where she was trapped on an uninhabited island in the Yukon River in Alaska. She has worn out over 36 pairs of shoes. Occasionally, she has run out of food or money, and is always grateful for the kindness of strangers she meets along the way. When she has the opportunity, Rosie communicates with family and friends on a website run by her son. People sometimes spot Rosie camping by the side of the road and talk with her or invite her home for supper. They often post on her website how she has inspired them. In a letter to her fans, Rosie writes, "Running can take you to places that do not exist if you travel in any other way. You are treading gently through someone else's land. Part of the life going on all around you. Part of the people, places, sunrises, storms, terrors, and joys." Now, answer this question. What is the text about? The answer would be, it's about Rosie Swell Pope. She's a woman who has run from Wales, across Europe and Russia, and now US. Reading 012, Unit 1, Lesson 2, RV Nomads. By the end of Unit 1, Lesson 2, you'll be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and locate important information from the text. Let's take a look at some vocabulary. Shift. This could also mean change. Stuff. This could also mean things. To swivel can mean to turn. To cruise, in this context, could mean to drive easily. And diesel fuel is a type of gas. Understanding the text. Read the online article below, then complete the following statements. The Webbers currently live in A, Osmond, Nebraska, B, Edmonton, Canada, or C, on the road. A full-time RVer is A person who lives in a recreational vehicle, B, a form of transportation, or C, a type of fuel. The Webbers, A, wish they had a regular house to live in, B, do not regret the decision to live in an RV, or C, get greater gas mileage in their RV. Let's read the text. RV Nomads by Russ Keene. 9 years ago, Duane and Mary Jane Webber, both 56 at the time, said goodbye to their settled life in Osmond, Nebraska. They sold their newspaper and printing businesses, their cars, their home, and just about everything in it. They bought a recreational vehicle and have been driving ever since. There are thousands of such people. Escapees RV Club reports that there are 34,000 member families who are full-time RVers in the United States and Canada. Never have the Webbers regretted the extreme shift in lifestyle. It's not for everybody, though. First, it takes a lot of love to make life on the road work. According to the Webbers, you have to want to be together. You have to be compatible. Second, you have to enjoy the traveling lifestyle. Third, it's not for people who like to own a lot of stuff, because there just isn't room. The driver's seat is a comfortable living room chair that swivels around to face the windshield. Cruising down the highway is like sitting in your living room and looking out a picture window at continually changing scenery, Duane said. Scenery isn't the only pleasure of RVing, according to the Webbers. The couple enjoys trying the various foods around the continent. They prepare most of their own meals in the RV, however. An RV can cost from $40,000 to $900,000 US, depending on the many features that are available. Once on the road, the main living expenses are food, clothing, and diesel fuel to keep the RV moving, the Webbers said. True, diesel is costly in the United States, and the RV is not fuel efficient. Duane likes to tell people who ask about the gas mileage that it's not great for a vehicle, but pretty good for a house. Now, complete the following statements as I read to you earlier. The Webbers currently live in the road. They live on the road. However, from the text you can read that they came from Osmond, Nebraska. Number 2, a full-time RVer is a person who lives in a recreational vehicle. And number 3, the Webbers do not regret the decision to live in an RV. Reading 012, Unit 1, Lesson 3, Moving Westward. By the end of Unit 1, Lesson 3, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text. Use reading strategies such as previewing and scanning a map, and find out specific information from the text. Vocabulary. A pioneer is a person who goes to an undeveloped land to live and work there. An immigrant is a person who moves from one area or country to another. Let's preview the map on the left and its legend, and then answer the questions. What is the title of the map? What area of the world does this map show? Do you think this map shows modern roads or historic trails? The title of the map is The Pioneer Trails, and it shows North America and the United States. And this map shows historic trails, and you can view that in the legend right here where my arrow is. Alright, scan the map for the answers to the questions. What are the names of the trails on the map? Which trail is the longest? Well, you're going to have to look at all the different trails and match it up to the legend here. Which trail goes through Salt Lake City, Utah? We'll have to take a look at that. The names of the trails on the map which can be found in the legend are the California Trail, the Gila Trail, the Mormon Trail, the Oregon Trail, and the Oregon Santa Fe Trail. Which trail is the longest, and about how long is it? It's the Mormon Trail. Which trail goes through Salt Lake City, Utah? The Mormon Trail. Which state is Santa Fe in? Well, here's Santa Fe. We can answer that question. It's New Mexico. Which trails would take a pioneer from Independence, Missouri to Los Angeles, California? We could say the Santa Fe Trail to the Gila Trail, the Oregon-California Trail to the California Trail. Reading 012, Unit 2, Lesson 1, A Famous Endangered Animal. By the end of Unit 2, Lesson 1, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text and apply reading strategies such as previewing. Vocabulary. Population. This is a number of people or animals in an area. Wildlife preservation. This is the protection of wild animals in natural surroundings. Categorize. This could be to put in a group. Failed to breed. Did not get pregnant and reproduce. Captive born. This is born in captivity, such as in a zoo. Previewing. Preview the newspaper article below by reading the first two paragraphs, then answer the following questions. What kind of animal is the article about? Where is the animal from? What does the center try to do? And what do you think this text is about? Let's take a look at the text, China's Giant Pandas. China's giant panda is one of the world's most endangered species. An endangered species is a type of plant or animal with such a low population that it may die out or become extinct. The giant panda is also perhaps the best loved of all animals. People around the world think the panda is very cute, and toy pandas are always popular with children. The panda is also an international symbol of wildlife preservation. Only about 1,000 pandas still exist in the wild. The panda population is very low because of the loss of the animal's natural habitat, a place where a plant or animal normally lives. Humans now use much of the land that the pandas once lived on. The panda's diet consists mostly of bamboo shoots, but the bamboo forests are also disappearing. The giant panda has always been a part of the culture of Chinese people. People in the West, however, first saw the giant panda in 1869. European biologists were surprised by its appearance. They debated whether to categorize the animal as a raccoon or bear. In 1936, an American named Ruth Harkness made the long and difficult journey to China and Tibet to capture one. She returned to America with a baby panda named Su Lin. Zoos around the world wanted their own animal. Unfortunately, Su Lin and other pandas brought to zoos did not thrive and failed to breed. Serious research on pandas did not begin until the 1980s. The Wulong Giant Panda Reserve Center is in the Sichuan province of China. Scientists there researched ways to save the panda. They are trying to breed giant pandas to increase the population. They also take care of sick, injured, and lost pandas. The center tries to make sure that all is well when the animals are released back into the wild. Recently, the first captive-born giant panda was released into the wild. The 4-year-old panda named Xiang Xiang is doing very well so far. He was trained at the Wulong Center to survive on his own. People around the world hope that scientists can release even more pandas back into the wild. Now answer the following questions, as I read to you earlier. What kind of animal is the article about? It's about giant pandas. And where is this animal from? China. And what does the center mention in the text try to do? It is trying to breed pandas to increase the population. And what do you think this text is about? Giant pandas. Reading 012, Unit 2, Lesson 2, Studying Tigers. By the end of Unit 2, Lesson 2, you'll be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and find out important information in the text. Vocabulary. A conference is a professional meeting, often at a big hotel. A feline is also known as a cat. Reduced, made smaller. Eliminated, stopped or removed. And encourage can mean helping someone want to do something. Read the magazine interview below, then choose the correct answer. How many tigers are still in India? A. 1,000, B. 3,000, or C. We're not sure. Number 2. Why are tigers disappearing? A. Habitat loss from fire and avalanche. B. Poaching of tigers, hunting of deer, and habitat destruction. Or C. Difficulty breeding and disease. Number 3. How can we protect wildlife? A. Reintroduce tigers into Indian wilderness. B. Increase breeding programs. Or C. Reduce or eliminate human activity on protected land. Number 4. Can the tiger be saved? A. Yes, because tigers reproduce easily and Indian culture respects animals. B. Yes, because there are still plenty of deer and other animals for tigers to eat. Or C. No, because the tiger habitat has been destroyed by elephants and farmers. Saving the Tiger by Claudia Dreyfus. When Ullas Kiranth was a teenager in India, he read books by naturalists who were researching the tigers of Asia. Someday I'll study tigers too, he told himself. Today, Dr. Kiranth is a leading tiger researcher and the director of the Wildlife Conservation Society's India program. Dr. Kiranth was in New York to attend a conference on the future of tigers in the wild. During a break, he spoke of his favorite feline. During a question and answer session, and I'll read both to you. The question: do we know how many wild tigers are still in India? And the answer: we don't know. The government says that there are more than 3,000, but preservation groups say the number is more like 1,000. At the Wildlife Conservation Society, we can only say that there are about 115,000 square miles of forest still left in the country where tigers can live. Question: why are tigers disappearing? Poaching is part of it. Poaching is the illegal hunting of animals. The parts of a single dead tiger are worth something like $5,000. But the biggest threat to tiger survival is habitat destruction and the uncontrolled hunting of the animals that tigers eat, like deer. We have plenty of forest areas where there should be tigers, but their numbers are low there because deer have been hunted out by the local people. So if you want to protect tigers, you actually also need to protect the deer. Question: how can we protect wildlife? To protect wildlife, you have to set aside some areas where human activities are reduced or eliminated. Right now, about 5% of India is designated as protected. But I estimate that humans are active on most of that protected land. This needs to stop. Question: do you think the Indian tiger can be saved? And the answer: certainly, if we try. India actually has more wild tigers than our neighboring countries. We won't need to reintroduce them. In addition, tigers reproduce easily. They are not like pandas. Also, I believe that Indian culture can help encourage conservation. In the Hindu religion, there is the belief that humans are a part of nature. I've talked with farmers whose crops have been destroyed by elephants, and they really hate them. But when I asked, don't elephants and tigers have the right to exist? They always said yes. All these factors make me hopeful that the tiger can be saved. Now let's take a look at the questions. As I mentioned to you earlier, let's choose the correct answer. Number 1, how many tigers are still in India? C, we're not sure. Number 2, why are tigers disappearing? B, poaching of tigers, hunting of deer, and habitat destruction. Number 3, how can we protect wildlife? C, reduce or eliminate human activity on protected land. And number 4, can the tiger be saved? A, yes, because tigers reproduce easily and Indian culture respects animals. Reading 012, Unit 2, Lesson 3, Animals in Danger. By the end of Unit 2, Lesson 3, you'll be able to identify the main idea in the reading text, use reading strategies such as previewing and scanning a map, and find out specific information from the text. Vocabulary. A mammal is a warm-blooded animal that has a backbone and feeds milk to its babies. A reptile is a cold-blooded animal that has a backbone, lives on land, and usually reproduces by laying eggs. An amphibian is an animal that lives on both water and land. An invertebrate is an animal that has no backbone. Let's preview the pictograph on the left and answer the questions. What is the title of the pictograph? What are the categories of animals? And how much does one paw print represent? The title of the pictograph is Endangered Species of the World. The categories of the animals are mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, insects, and other invertebrates. And one paw represents 100 different species, as mentioned in the legend or key below. Which category has the most endangered animals? That would be the amphibians because they have the most paw prints, and each paw print is worth 100. Which category has the fewest endangered animals? Reptiles. About how many bird species are endangered? Over 1,200. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 1,200 here, and this is just a little bit over 1,200. Number 4, about how many mammal species are endangered? 1,100. Number 5, what is the total number of endangered animal species in the world? About 7,800. Reading 012, Unit 3, Lesson 1, Giant Pumpkins. By the end of Unit 3, Lesson 1, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text and use reading strategies such as previewing. Vocabulary. Words on the left, meaning on the right. Let's follow. Consecutive. Following each other continuously. Patch. A small piece of ground, especially one used for gardening. Fertilizer. A chemical or natural substance added to soil or land to increase its fertility. And harvest is gathering a crop. For example, corn, and also sweet potatoes, anything that grows. Previewing. Preview the newspaper article below by reading the first 2 paragraphs. Then answer the following questions. Who is the article about? What does he grow? Where does he live? When did he grow world champion pumpkins? Giant Pumpkins, Howard Dill, by Kathy Crummell. Howard Dill is a giant among giant pumpkin growers. He grew world champion pumpkins for 4 consecutive years, from 1979 to 1982, and missed winning the 5th year by a mere 5 pounds. Today, his Dill Atlantic giant seeds are sold worldwide to more than 50 seed companies. The pumpkins grown from his Dill Atlantic giant seeds commonly weigh in at over 1,000 pounds. Dill says he inherited his love of pumpkins from his father and has enjoyed growing them for years. Dill still grows giant pumpkins, but not for competition. In the fall, visitors come to enjoy the pumpkin patch on his 90-acre farm in Nova Scotia, Canada. He plants 10 acres of pumpkins for Halloween and 2 acres of giant pumpkins. One of his giant pumpkins was recently baked into 442 pumpkin pies and sold at $5 each for charity. If you want to try growing a giant pumpkin, Dill recommends starting with a soil test and then adding fertilizer as needed. Plant the giant pumpkin seed. A giant pumpkin can gain 15 to 20 pounds a day, so careful watering every day or two is essential. You should wait about 130 days until the pumpkin matures, and then you can harvest it. Dill's favorite pumpkin set the Guinness Book record in 1981. It weighed 493.5 pounds. The 2006 world record holder is Larry Chekon of Pennsylvania. He grew a 1,469-pounder. Dill says, "These world champions are grown from my seeds, so I feel like a winner right along with them." Now answer the following questions. Number 1. Who is the article about? It's about Howard Dill. Number 2. What does he grow? Giant pumpkins. Number 3. Where does he live? Nova Scotia, Canada. And number 4. When did he grow world champion pumpkins? From 1979 to 1982, 4 consecutive years as mentioned in the text. Unit 3, Lesson 2. Reading 012. Unit 3, Lesson 2. The Garden on Robben Island. By the end of Unit 3, Lesson 2, you will be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and locate important information in the text. Vocabulary. Sentence. In this context, it would mean the time a prisoner is in prison. Landfill is an outdoor area where trash is buried. Comrades is also known as friends. A miner is a person who works underground in a mine, digging for coal, salt, and silver. A quarry is an open pit where stone is dug. Read the academic text below. Then write T for true and F for false statements. 1. Nelson Mandela worked in a quarry during the day. 2. Mandela had many gardens before coming to Robben Island. 3. Mandela read books on gardening to learn more about it. 4. Mandela grew peanuts successfully. 5. Mandela found gardening very satisfying. Mandela's Garden by Nelson Mandela. Almost from the beginning of my sentence on Robben Island, I asked the authorities for permission to start a garden in the courtyard. For years they refused without offering a reason, but eventually they agreed, and we were able to cut out a small garden on a narrow patch of earth against the far wall. The soil in the courtyard was dry and rocky. The courtyard had been constructed over a landfill, and in order to start my garden, I had to excavate a great many rocks to allow the plants room to grow. At the time, some of my comrades joked with me. They said I was a miner at heart, for I spend my days at the quarry and my free time digging in the courtyard. While I have always enjoyed gardening, it was not until I was behind bars that I was able to tend my own garden. I began to order books on gardening and horticulture. I studied different gardening techniques and types of fertilizer. I did not have many of the materials that the books discussed, but I learned through trial and error. For a time, I attempted to grow peanuts and used different soils and fertilizers. for them, but I finally gave up. It was one of my only failures. A garden was one of the few things in prison that one could control. To plant a seed, watch it grow, to tend it, and then harvest it, offered a simple but enduring satisfaction. The sense of being the custodian of this small patch of earth offered a small taste of freedom. In some ways, I saw the garden as a metaphor for certain aspects of my life. A leader must also tend his garden. He too plants and seeds, tends them, and harvests the results. Like the gardener, he must mind his work, try to repel the enemies, preserve what can be preserved, and eliminate what cannot succeed. Number 1. Nelson Mandela worked in a quarry during the day. True. Number 2. Mandela had many gardens before coming to Robben Island. False. Number 3. Mandela read books on gardening to learn more about it. True. Number 4. Mandela grew peanuts successfully. False. Number 5. Mandela found gardening very satisfying. True. Reading 012. Unit 3. Lesson 3. Bulb planting. By the end of Unit 3, Lesson 3, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text. Use reading strategies such as previewing and scanning a map. And find out specific information from the text. Preview the bar graph and answer the questions. The bar graph is to your left. What is the title of the bar graph? That would be Spring Flowering Bulbs. What information does the graph show? It shows when, blooming time, and how much plant height a flowering bulb grows. It also tells you what is the planting depth or the recommended planting depth of each of the plants. And what do you think this graph is for? It is for measuring and comparing flowering bulb growth. Scan the graph for the answers to the questions. How deep should you plant a daffodil bulb? How high does it grow? And when will it bloom? Well, here's a daffodil bulb. And you should plant it at least 6 inches deep. It will grow 1 to 2 feet. You can see that in between here. And it will bloom in April. Which bulb should you plant the deepest? How deep should it be planted? That would be the tulip at 7 inches deep. Which bulb grows the tallest? How tall does it grow? That would be the giant allium at 4 feet. Which bulb blooms the earliest? When does it bloom? That would be the crocus in early March. Which bulb blooms the latest? When does it bloom? That would be the giant allium in late May. Reading 012. Unit 4. Lesson 1. A 3-in-1 sport. By the end of Unit 4, Lesson 1, you'll be able to identify the main idea in the reading text and use the reading strategies such as skimming. Vocabulary. A triathlon is a race in which the competitors swim, ride a bicycle, and run without stopping between events, often for long distances. Ultimate. This could mean the most important, highest, last, or final. Imagine is to form or have a mental picture or idea of something or someone. Insane is extremely unreasonable or mentally ill in the case of a person. Enormous. This is extremely large. Read the online article below, then answer the following questions. Number 1. What must an athlete do to be called an Ironman? Number 2. How long is a marathon? Number 3. What do all Ironman athletes include in their training? Number 4. What do Ironman triathletes usually eat and or drink during the race? Number 5. According to the text, how do most triathletes start their training? The Ironman. Each October in Hawaii, 1,800 male and female athletes come from all over the world to compete. They are competitors in a challenging triathlon called the Ironman. The competition is a combination of 3 types of races. Athletes start with a 2.4-mile ocean swim. Then they get on a bicycle for a 112-mile bike race. They finish the triathlon by running a marathon, a 22-mile foot race. The competition begins at 7 a.m. The athletes who cross the finish line by midnight are called Ironmen. So how does a competitor train for this ultimate race? Most triathletes begin training months before the race. They increase their endurance, their ability to perform for a long period of time, through daily biking, running, and swimming. Many competitors add weightlifting, yoga, and or Pilates to their routines. The average Ironman triathlete spends 18 to 24 hours each week training for this event. Good nutrition or healthy eating is also an important part of preparing for this difficult race. Eating high-quality food provides fuel to push the body to do its best. During the race, triathletes drink water and sports drinks. Many also eat soup, fruit, or specially designed energy gel. Getting ready for the Ironman involves preparation of the mind as well as the body. Most athletes begin their training by setting an objective or goal. For some, the objective is to win. Others want to improve their time. Some simply want to finish the race. These Ironman competitors develop training plans. They ask for support of friends, family, and coworkers. As they train, many athletes imagine themselves on race day, crossing the finish line. The Ironman triathlon is probably the most difficult athletic event ever created. To most people, the idea of such a competition sounds insane. A person must be crazy to attempt such a difficult race. To a few athletes, however, the Ironman race is the ultimate athletic challenge. These people spend an enormous amount of time in training their bodies and minds, all for the title, Ironman. Number 1. What must an athlete do to be called an Ironman? They must finish the competition by midnight. Number 2. How long is the marathon? It's 26.2 miles. Number 3. What do all Ironman athletes include in their training? Biking, swimming, and running. Number 4. What do Ironman triathletes usually eat and or drink during the race? Water, sports drinks, soup, bananas, and specially designed energy gels. Number 5. According to the text, how do most triathletes start their training? By setting a goal. Reading 012. Unit 4, Lesson 2. Athletes in Training. By the end of Unit 4, Lesson 2, you'll be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and locate important information in the text. Vocabulary. Potion. This is a liquid believed to have medical or magical powers. Hyperbaric chamber. This is a large, high-pressure, high-oxygen tube. Adjust. This is to change to fit new circumstances. And acclimate. This is to get used to something. Preview the magazine article below. Underline the title, the headings, and the first sentence of each paragraph as you preview. Then answer the following questions. Question 1. What is the text about? Question 2. What 4 athletes are discussed in the text? Question 3. What is the name of the American athlete? Question 4. Who trained in relay running, triple, and long jump? Question 5. Where is Katerina from? Question 6. Which sport did Tegla like? The strange training methods of world-class athletes. World-class athletes have always looked for ways to improve their level of fitness and get an edge on their competitors. During Greek and Roman times, some athletes would lift rocks and drink strange potions as part of their training. In the past century, athletes have tried everything from eating raw eggs to sleeping in hyperbaric chambers to have an advantage and win a competition. Here are 4 world-class athletes and the uncommon techniques they use to train for their competitions. Chuchi Nambu. Chuchi Nambu was an Olympic athlete in the 1928 and 1932 Games. He ran one leg or part of Japan's 4x100-meter relay race, which is a race run by 4 athletes, one after the other. And he won medals for the long jump and triple jump. Because Nambu lived in northern Japan, he was unable to practice outdoors in the cold winters. He trained by doing workouts in a local department store, running up and down stairs and through the crowds. Nambu also studied the natural world to improve his technique. He observed or closely watched frogs and monkeys as they jumped and tried to use their techniques in his own jumps. Tegla Lerope. Tegla Lerope is an Olympic runner from Kenya. Before she won the New York City Marathon in 1994, she was unknown in the international running scene. Lerope began running as a way to get to her school 6 miles away. If she was late for school, she was punished. She also ran at home on her family's farm. Her family owned cattle, and Lerope had to run to herd them, or control their movement as a group. At 4'11" and 90 pounds, she is still considered the fastest female marathon runner. Katerina Numanov. Katerina Numanov is a cross-country skier from the Czech Republic. She won a gold medal in the 2006 Winter Olympics. In the 2006 Winter Olympics, while other athletes are in bed, Katerina Numanov is training. Part of her training is sleeping inside a special tent. The conditions inside the tent simulate the conditions at high altitudes, like on high mountains, with cold temperatures and less oxygen. Living at high altitudes allows your body to adjust to less oxygen. Many people believe this improves athletic performance. Katerina has another hypoxic, low-oxygen tent that is big enough for her to move around in. 3 times each week, Katerina exercises inside her training tent. Lynn Cox. Lynn Cox was the first person to swim across the Bering Strait from Alaska to Siberia. She wore only a bathing suit and swim cap. Cox began training for open water swimming as a teenager by acclimating her body to cold temperatures. She swam in cold water, slept without blankets and with the windows open, and always wore light clothes in the winter. Her techniques worked. At age 15, she became the fastest person to swim across the English Channel. Now answer the following questions. What is the text about? What 4 athletes are discussed in this text? What is the name of the American athlete? Who trained in relay running, triple, and long jump? Where is Katerina from? And which sport did Tegla like? Reading 012. Unit 4, Lesson 3. Marathon Times. By the end of Unit 4, Lesson 3, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text, use reading strategies such as previewing and scanning a map, and find out specific information from the text. Reading skills. Preview the line graph on your left and answer the questions. What is the title of the graph? That would be Record Marathon Times. What do the 2 lines on the graph represent? You have the men's record times on one line of the graph, and you have the women's record times on the other line of the graph. With what year does the graph begin? With what year does it end? And that would be with 1900 and 2010 respectively. What was the record time for men in 1970? Let's scan the graph. That would be 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So we can look at 1970. We can look at 1970 and we can correlate that to this dot on the chart, this place on the chart. And that's approximately 2 minutes and 8 seconds. What was the record time for women in 2005? We have 2 minutes and 15 seconds approximately. 2005 would be roughly in between 2000 and 2010. And if we take that to the women's line, that would bring us to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. In what year was the first women's marathon time recorded? That would be 1972, at this space right here. What was the difference between men's and women's record times in 1972? 36 seconds. What was the difference between men's and women's record times in 2005? That would be only 10 seconds. Reading 012. Unit 5, Lesson 1. Baby Sign Language. By the end of Unit 5, Lesson 1, you'll be able to identify the main idea in the reading text and use reading strategies such as skimming. Vocabulary. Hesitation. This is the act of pausing before doing something, especially because you are nervous or not certain. Communicate. This is to share information with others by speaking, writing, moving your body, or using other signals. Utter. This is to say something or to make a sound with your voice. Roar. This is to make a long, loud, deep sound. And incredible. This is impossible or very difficult to believe. Read the text, then answer the following questions. Why does Emma brush her fingers against her cheeks? What is the difference between baby signs and American Sign Language? What words can Emma sign? How does Emma show that she wants to look at a book? And can Emma communicate more by speaking or by using signs? And what age was Emma when she could tell her mother exactly what she wanted? Baby Emma isn't talking yet, but she's saying plenty. By Robin Rhodes Crowell. Emma and I are sitting on the bed as our cat jumps up. Emma looks at the cat and then, without hesitation, takes both pointer fingers and brushes them against her cheeks. It's her symbol for cat. Emma is learning baby signs. Baby signs are the same idea as American Sign Language, ASL. But the parents and the baby determine the signs. The actual sign doesn't matter as long as everyone in the household understands it. At 12 months old, Emma is too young to communicate with words. She is just starting to utter sounds that could be words such as hat, hot, and high. But she has a whole repertoire of images and ideas that she communicates to us. We started teaching Emma signs when she was 7 months old. The motions are the same ones most infants use instinctively. We started with more, pointer finger to the palm, by, which is waving, and eat, which is fingers to the mouth. We were pleased and rewarded when at 9 months, Emma started telling us she wanted more to eat. She moved on to more baby signs such as nap, drink, book, bird, and others. Some we taught her, and some she made up on her own. Our experience with baby signs has helped us understand Emma's needs. One afternoon, after she and I had finished shopping at the bookstore, I put Emma into her car seat. As I handed toys, each one was met with an upset look and an angry roar. Emma then looked up at me with her big blue eyes and put her palms together, and then opened them. I knew that she wanted a book to read. I gave it to her and she was happy. How incredible that at 12 months she was able to tell me exactly what she wanted. For Emma, life without words is not a life without language. Read the text and answer the following questions. Why does Emma brush her fingers against her cheeks? What is the difference between baby signs and American Sign Language? What words can Emma sign? How does Emma show that she wants to look at a book? And can Emma communicate more by speaking or by using signs? Also, what age was Emma when she could tell her mother exactly what she wanted? Reading 012. Unit 5, Lesson 2. Just whistle. By the end of Unit 5, Lesson 2, you'll be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and locate important information in the text. Vocabulary. Shepherds. These are people who take care of sheep. Terrain. This is a type of land, for example, a hilly area. Megaphone. This is a piece of equipment that makes your voice louder. Preview the magazine article below. Underline the title, the first sentence of each paragraph, and the last sentence of the text. Then answer the following questions. Number 1. What is the topic of the text? Number 2. What is the language used? Number 3. Who is learning the language? Number 4. What type of terrain would you see if you visited La Gomera? Number 5. How far away can Silbo Gomera whistles be heard? Just whistle. People who live in La Gomera, a small island off the coast of Africa, are starting to whistle while they work again. But these are not ordinary songs. In fact, Silbo Gomera is not music at all, but a whistled language you can hear only on this hilly Spanish island. Researchers believe that Silbo Gomera first came to the island with settlers from Africa over 2,500 years ago. Residents are attempting to bring the language back to life before those who know it best, the shepherds, can no longer pass it on. The whistled language is called Silbo from silbar, the Spanish word for whistle. In the language, whistled sounds replace Spanish words. Sounds that are whistled higher or lower have different meanings. A silbador, or whistler, can change the level of the whistle by using his fingers. The hilly terrain of the region helps the sound travel. A silbador can direct the sound even more by cupping the other hand like a megaphone. Whistlers do not simply pass along information about basic needs. They can carry on whole conversations. The whistlers can communicate more than 4,000 words. However, since some words sound similar, whistlers must sometimes guess the meaning. In 2000, the local government required all school children in the island's 15 schools to learn Silbo Gomero. Students between the ages of 7 and 14 practice the whistled language for half an hour a week. As a result, they can communicate with friends who live up to 2 miles away. As many as 70 other whistled languages exist in areas with similar terrain: Greece, Turkey, China, Vietnam, and Mexico. But researchers have only studied 12. Each one is based on the language spoken in that area. Studying these languages is an important step in maintaining their existence. Modern communication systems, especially cell phones, now threaten them. The people of La Gomera hope that by teaching children their special language in school, they can continue to pass it on to future generations. Answer the following questions. What is the topic of the text? What is the language used? Who is learning the language? What type of terrain would you see if you visited La Gomera? How far away can Silbo Gomera whistles be heard? Reading 012. Unit 5, Lesson 3. Advances in Communication. By the end of Unit 5, Lesson 3, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text, use reading strategies such as previewing and scanning a map, and find out specific information from the text. Preview the timeline to your left and answer the questions. What is the subject of the timeline? That would be the history of communication. What are the two areas What are the two eras covered by the timeline? We have BCE and CE. Approximately how many years does the timeline cover? 5,500 years. It starts in 3500 BCE, that is before zero, so 3500, and it goes up to the year 2000. So together, that's 5,500 years. Now, let's scan the timeline for the answers to the questions below. What is the earliest year in the timeline? That would be 3500 BCE all the way over to your left. Which time period is longer? The BCE time period encompasses over 3,500 years. In which period were there more communication inventions? That would be after 0 CE. What were some of the inventions of the BCE period? We have an alphabet, papyrus, which is like paper, and paper. What were some of the inventions of the CE period? This is after 0. That would be the telephone, the computer, and the World Wide Web. Reading 012, Unit 6, Lesson 1, International Cure. By the end of Unit 6, Lesson 1, you will be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text and use reading strategies such as skimming. Vocabulary. Traditional. Existing in or as part of a tradition. This is long established. Remedy. This is a medicine or treatment for a disease or injury. Herbal. This is relating to or made from herbs, especially those used in cooking and medicine. Symptoms are a sign of the existence of something, especially of an undesirable situation. Dementia is a chronic or persistent disorder of the mental processes caused by brain disease or injury, and marked by memory disorders, personality changes, and impaired reasoning. Inflammation is a red, painful, and often swollen area in or on a part of your body. Read the text and answer the following questions. What is the name of the herb that is used to treat Alzheimer's disease? What country does the herb come from? What are the bad effects on the body of this herb? How has this herb been used in China? How many Alzheimer's patients have had their symptoms lessened? Chinese moss may alleviate Alzheimer's disease. A traditional Chinese herbal remedy might be effective in treating Alzheimer's disease. Experts on the disease looked at research in China and studies in the United States. Based on the results, they believe the harmless herbal remedy may be even more effective than the 2 drugs that doctors use now to treat the disease. Alzheimer's disease affects as many as 4 million elderly Americans and 12 million people worldwide. Common symptoms are dementia and memory loss. There is no known cure. The traditional remedy called Qian Seng Ta comes from a moss. It has been used for centuries in China to treat fever and inflammation. The remedy has another positive effect. It slows down the breakdown of acetylcholine, which is a chemical in the brain that helps it work normally. Alzheimer's sufferers often experience memory loss and are confused about what is happening around them. This is the result of the acetylcholine breakdown. The 2 drugs now used to treat Alzheimer's patients improve the way the brain works, but they can also cause stomach and liver problems. Qian Seng Ta seems to be even more effective than the drugs at treating the disease, and it has none of the bad effects on the body. The traditional remedy Qian Seng Ta has been used to treat dementia in China. Doctors there prescribe it to patients. Reports from that country suggest that as many as 100,000 Alzheimer's patients have had their symptoms lessened, according to Alan Kozakowski, Ph.D., Georgetown University. Kozakowski first separated and studied the herbal compound in 1991. Read the text and answer the following questions. What is the name of the herb that is used to treat Alzheimer's disease? What country does the herb come from? What are the bad effects on the body of this herb? And how has this herb been used in China? How many Alzheimer's patients have had their symptoms lessened? Reading 012, Unit 6, Lesson 2, Echinacea. It works. Oops, it works not. By the end of Unit 6, Lesson 2, you will be able to recognize the main idea in the reading text, or locate important information in the text. Vocabulary. The NIH, the National Institute of Health, is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It is the main federal agency for supporting and conducting medical research. Not clinically effective, in other words, shown not to be effective when studied in a clinic or hospital. Cold symptoms are the signs that tell you that you have a cold. Placebo is a substance given to a patient instead of medicine, without patients knowing it is not real. Preview the newspaper article below. Underline the title, the first sentence of each paragraph, and the last sentence of the text as you preview. Then answer the following questions. What is the topic of the article? What is the main idea of the article? What is the bad news that NIH has? Who is Ronald Turner? Echinacea. It works. Oops, it works not. By Elizabeth Wise. The National Institute of Health, NIH, has bad news for millions of Americans. They spend $155 million a year on the popular herbal remedy, echinacea, to treat the cough and runny nose of their common colds. But echinacea, a new study shows, doesn't work. It's not clinically effective, says Ronald Turner. Turner should know. He is an expert on the common cold at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. He wrote the major echinacea study. His study, reported in the current New England Journal of Medicine, is the best test ever done on the effectiveness of the herbal remedy, says Stephen Strauss. Strauss directs the NIH's National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. Turner is in the third year of his study of 3 years that shows that echinacea was not effective in lessening cold symptoms in children or young adults. The findings of these 3 studies are the opposite of positive reports on echinacea's effects, mostly from studies done in Europe. In Turner's study, researchers at the University of Virginia randomly gave 399 volunteers either echinacea or a placebo for 7 days. They then put drops containing cold germs in their noses to give them colds. Finally, the researchers left them alone in the hotel room so that they couldn't get a cold from anyone or anything else. The goal was to find out if taking echinacea prevents infection or can limit the length of the cold. The answer was no, Turner says. It has no effect on the rate at which volunteers got infected or on their symptoms. More than 80% of the volunteers in each group got a cold. The problem with colds, which last about 7 days, is no matter what you do, you're going to get better, Strauss says. That might make people think that taking echinacea helps when it actually doesn't. Answer the following questions. Number 1, what is the topic of the article? Number 2, what is the main idea of the article? Number 3, what is the bad news the NIH has? Number 4, who is Ronald Turner? Reading 012. Unit 6, Lesson 3, Food Cures. By the end of Unit 6, Lesson 3, you will be able to identify the main idea in the reading text, use reading strategies, previewing and scanning a map, and find out the specific information in the text. Preview the chart on your left and answer the questions. What are the 5 categories covered in the chart? You have problems, foods to try, why and how they work, how much to eat, and what to avoid. How many physical problems does the chart include? 6. Migraine and headaches, extreme tiredness, stress, heartburn, gas, and bad breath. What food should you avoid if you get a migraine headache? You should avoid processed meats, MSG, chocolate, and hard cheeses. How much quinoa should you eat if you are very tired? 1.5 cups of cooked quinoa daily. What is a good drink to try if you have bad breath? What is a good drink to try if you have bad breath? Well, let's look at bad breath. Foods to try. Black tea or green or oolong tea.